It's about sharing conversations, not only receiving them, but sharing them. Arrow.net, ARROE.net. All right, let's do some pod crashing. This is episode number 167 with Lucas Reilly, host of the podcast Big Brother, North Korea's Forgotten Prince.
Good, how are you?
Absolutely fantastic. I got to tell you what, your podcast is just so in touch with what's going on in the real world today. It's almost like reminding us that, hey, look, there's somebody else out there in the world, and you need to know about that person.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
To put it together, though, I mean, it's you put some stuff on this podcast that it's like, what? How did he get his hands on that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we spoke to CIA analysts. We talked to some of the top journalists in the industry, top journalists on the North Korea beat. We tried to get everyone that we possibly could, formerly Barack Obama's advisor to North Korea, as well as talks with Democrats and Republicans, so he knows his stuff as well. We try to cover the gamut.
Outside of government figures and stuff like that, how many people in the world really knew about Kim Jong-nam?
Outside of government figures, most normal folks probably have never heard of him. And one of the reasons is that North Korea does an excellent job of keeping who's in the family secret. Like right now, we believe that Kim Jong-un has children, but we don't really know anything about it. We just assume that he does. Kim Jong-il had 3 children, 3 boys, and he kept them a secret from the world until they were all in their 20s. So outside of international experts, North Korea watchers were looking at this closely. Most people didn't know that Kim Jong-nam even existed. Definitely people in North Korea itself. North Koreans did not know the leader had children, and that was deliberate. He kept them a secret.
I'm thinking this podcast is not going to make its way into North Korea.
It probably won't. Though one of our experts we talked with, the thing is, if you're an elite and you live in Pyongyang and you're part of the Politburo, you have access to everything that you and I have access to. Whether it's foreign currency or the latest TV shows, the latest music. If you're one of the elite, you definitely have it. So maybe there's someone in Pyongyang close to Kim Jong-un who's listening to this. And in that case, I'm probably on a list.
The darkness, the deceit, the assassination plot. I mean, this is playing out like a movie that we would see starring Tom Cruise.
Yeah, the way that he was assassinated was probably one of the most brazen and bizarre assassination attempts of the 21st century. He was walking through Kuala Lumpur International Airport just a day before Valentine's Day. He was getting his ticket at the kiosk stand, and then all of a sudden 2 women snuck up behind him and smeared a cream or lotion on his face as if they were playing a game of like Guess Who, and then they ran away. And then all of a sudden, 15 minutes later, he's dead. And it later revealed that the women had actually sprayed or smeared VX nerve agent onto his face, which is the deadliest chemical weapon in the world. And it's so deadly that just a single raindrop of pure concentrated VX will kill you. So they had smeared this onto his face. He was dead immediately. And then that's really what brought everything to the world's attention. And then later, when these women were caught by the police, because they were caught relatively quickly, they told the police, oh, I didn't know that I killed somebody. I was told I was on a game show.
Oh, no. Wow. The podcast we're talking about is Big Brother, North Korea's Forgotten Prince. You know, in listening to the first episode, I can't help but tell you that I'm also thinking of Kim Jong's sister, because everybody that I've talked to lately is going, she's next. She's the next top power over there.
Yeah, people do talk about that a lot. I'm a little skeptical of it because, frankly, the North Koreans are a really patriarchal society. The experts I've spoken with, they're really surprised that the North Koreans have even allowed a woman to go that far up to be. But the successor question is always a huge one, because successors must always have what's called pek to blood, which is to say that it's believed or it's said by the Kims in their propaganda that the next leader of North Korea must always have blood that descended from Mount Paektu. And Mount Paektu is a mountain in North Korea. It's very mythical and magical. It holds a place in the country's lore. It's very important to their stories about themselves. So it said that Kim Il-sung was like fought on the mountain. Kim Jong-il was born on the mountain. Kim Jong-un was born near the mountain. You have to have this pure bloodline. So his sister does have that pure blood. So she has that going for her. And that's kind of a way of buying into this myth of the Paektu bloodline is one of those ways that they perpetuate family rule and keep power within the Kims. So she has a chance.
One of the things that we had to do as I grew into becoming a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo, which is a Korean sport, is that we had to know the history of both Koreas. And one of the things that really draws close to my heart is that how other countries always attack Korea. So much of me sees what goes on in North Korea, and I go, I understand what they're doing because they've always been under attack. What have you personally learned from that?
The one thing that we're really pushing, the one thing that we really want people to understand is that the American perspective of North Korea is something of a caricature. We tend to look down on the country as if it's kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they are kind of crazy when you look at it from the surface. Like Kim Jong-un recently announced that his father invented the burrito. It's a little ridiculous. You know, they claim to have found a unicorn lair in a cave. Like all this stuff is really easy to make fun of. But when you understand the context of the country and how their politics works and why it works the way it does, a lot of it makes a significant amount of sense. And that's the one thing our experts kept telling us over and over again is that North Korea is not unpredictable. They're really not crazy. They are coming from a place that makes quite a bit of sense, but you have to understand that history. You have to understand the history of Japanese occupation. You have to understand how the United States, how we were involved and had nuclear weapons pointed at them for about 50 straight years. They act the way they act for a reason, which to me at least is a little bit reassuring because that means we can, at least they're not completely unpredictable and we can make some policy decisions based on that. That makes a little bit of sense. And you mentioned Taekwondo, Korean sport. The podcast is also full of just like really fascinating facts in the sense that there was a time that North Korea was really, really sympathetic to revolutionary causes. And they would actually invite Irish revolutionaries, the IRA. They invited them to North Korea for training. They also invited Mexican revolutionaries to training, and they taught the Mexicans, they put them through boot camp and taught them all Taekwondo, and then sent them back to Mexico so they could do their go through their attacks.
You know what's so interesting about you saying that is that doesn't shock me because I mean the real basis of Taekwondo is community, and I know that my Grand Master was all about that. He would travel up into North Korea all the time, and it was just, and he would always say, what? No, family. It's all family. Get the story, and so you know it's like wow. I have a complete, like you said, I have the Americanized version of North Korea.
Yeah, North Korea has, you know. The United States is more cut off from North Korea than North Korea is cut off from the world. Like we have this perspective of them as this like hermit kingdom. They're a loner country, but the truth is they have embassies in 44 countries, including places like Spain and Sweden. They have relations with more than 100 countries. They're involved in trade. They're building factories in Africa. They're sending soldiers to Syria to help with their chemical warfare. North Korea is more involved than we give them credit for.
So then I got to ask you a question. The podcast, Big Brother, North Korea's Forgotten Prince, are you not also being a teacher here as well? You know, showcasing a side of North Korea that we don't know about?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why it surprised me, because I thought I was just, when I started writing a story about an assassination and, you know, who did it, why did they do it? And that itself is a really exciting story. But what I learned is like I need to understand North Korea's motivations for me to understand this death. You need to understand how North Korea works to understand why Kim Jong-nam was the firstborn son. He should have been the leader. So why is he not the dictator of North Korea right now. Why did he end up dead in an airport in Malaysia? And to understand that, you need to understand how the palace structure works. You have to understand how North Korea's politics work, because a lot of things happened to him that led to his downfall. And so we explore those things in the podcast.
Well, everything that I've learned through the fake news or whatever news is that the current leader of North Korea was just he proved his strength. He proved it by, it wasn't just a bunch of words, but he physically proved his strength. And so I have to ask the question: did Kim Jong-nam was he weak in any areas?
I think he was weak in a couple areas, in the sense that we go into detail into the podcast, so I don't want to give everything away.
Yeah, I know.
Like his brother, he was educated in Switzerland, and he actually really enjoyed the West. And if anything, he was weakened by his fondness for capitalism. Mm-hmm. And you can't bring that back to North Korea. And if he had been the leader and had tried to open up the country, or tried to have an economic reform like Vietnam's opened up significantly, China has opened up significantly. If he had done that to North Korea, the country might have fallen apart. That might have been his weakness, whereas Kim Jong-un is more dedicated toward keeping the country essentially on its own path.
And isn't that the reason why we're currently in this situation with Russia and Ukraine? Because it was becoming westernized, and Putin didn't want anything like that. And I have to ask you, as a journalist, is that a story you're going to jump on?
It's not a story I'm going to jump on, because I feel like I've lived in this planet for a little too long, meaning like the planet of communism and ex-communist states, and the West versus the East. I might take a little breather after this one, but yeah, that's the central battle that's happening right now. The reason why China is so friendly to North Korea. North Korea receives significant amounts of aid from China is because China wants a buffer from the West. North Korea provides a nice little buffer from South Korea and the United States and the troops that are there. Like, North Korea is a nice space. They're not huge fans of North Korea, but they're fans enough that they're going to give them a bunch of money and keep them going. So China is a huge roadblock to stopping anything North Korea does, because they are their number one funder.
So in putting, let's talk about producer to producer, host to host. You have so much information here. How did you know to lay it out in the formation that you're doing? Because, I mean, listeners can go and get the first episode right now, and at the end of it, they're going to go, wait, it can't be over yet. Well, it's not over yet.
No. I mean, that's the hard part about storytelling, yeah. It's basically you're going on the same adventure that I went on when I started researching this story, in that here's this fascinating assassination attempt, and we're going to explore why he died, who killed him, the kind of political backstabbing and the family gossip. The Kims are very much like the Kardashians. They're always trying to undercut each other in the palaces. And so you have to keep looking back to understand why he died. So looked at why he died, and then you have to understand a little bit about Confucianism before we go forward. And then, okay, move forward. Now you have to understand a little bit about palace life and the backstabbing. Kim Jong-un's mother versus Kim Jong-nam's mother were basically fighting each other, sniping at each other. They were basically tiger moms, and how they helped position their children to be elevated in the political realm. That's the story just unfolded that way.
And the way that you share the story is fascinating, in the way that, see, I like pace. I like the way that you evenly spread out the sound bites. I love the production value of it. Are you sitting in that editing room with them? Do you get to be a part of that?
I'm part of it. I'm not sitting in the editing room because we have a really amazing national team. My lead producer is in Atlanta. Her name's Amelia Brock. And our composer is also in Atlanta, but we have my other producers in New York, and I'm in Baltimore, Maryland. So we're all over the place, much like with a lot of things with the pandemic. You know, I'm in the room, but in the room digitally. So we're definitely there together.
Do you find yourself watching the analytics even after the first episode and stuff like that? Only because, I mean, it's like, I would like to know which countries are listening to this podcast.
I haven't thought about that. Usually I try to focus on making the best podcast that I possibly can, but without focusing too much on the numbers. But now that you mentioned that, I might want to try to see the countries, see if there's like a ping in North Korea, that like one single ping.
Did you find yourself being a student in all of this? Because, I mean, the way that you ask questions and the way that you set things up for the listeners in this storytelling is the fact that it's like you have discovered something and you can't wait to share it with your friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, my favorite way of telling this story is as if you're sitting in a bar and you're telling a story about something and you just can't wait to share this fact. Like, I have this crazy fact. Like, here's a crazy fact. North Korea has a chain of restaurants, and they're all across the world. They're called Pyongyang. They had a restaurant recently. It closed, but it was in Amsterdam. North Korea had its own chain of restaurants, one of them in a Western country, where they served all these different foods, including cuttlefish, and which contained bear aphrodisiac, right? These like classic ancient Korean dishes. These are things that you would never consider. So absolutely, I feel like a student, you learn something and you're like, I have to share this. People have to know this, because it kind of jars your sense of the world.
So where do you go next? I mean, is there a website where people can tap into it to find out even more and stuff like that? Because, I mean, I know that everything isn't falling into this podcast.
No, just the podcast. We have 7 more episodes. It'll be an 8-episode podcast, and it's exploring everything from the political intrigue to the palace backstabbing and the fighting family feuds. I think we can pack quite a bit in 8 40-minute podcasts.
and it's perfect timing too, Lucas. I mean, 40 minutes is the perfect time for a podcast. You mean, very easily you could have taken it to 2 hours apiece.
Oh, absolutely. The amount of it's funny because it's impossible to find any solid information about North Korea. It's always hard to verify information, but the information that is out there about the family, much of it written by defectors or people in the family, is fascinating. And separating the wheat from the chaff is really hard, but the amount of information about the Kim family and how they treat each other, from the family that has escaped and is now in exile, is, I think, fascinating and really happy to share with people.
Well, I truly believe that this is the first step of a brand new beginning, because, I mean, people are going to be tapping into this and we're going to be talking about it, dude.
I hope so. Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. Please come back to the show anytime in the future. Lucas, the door is always going to be open for you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay?
I'll try.